Greetings from the land of dreams and nightmares, my children. Thomas Ligotti is a somewhat reclusive horror writer whose work tends to follow along the lines of our beloved H.P. Lovecraft. And in 2007, my children, several of his tales were adapted to a book of sequential scares. This is the Nightmare Factory.
The first tale is called The Last Feast of Harlequin. So many out there say that clowns terrify them, but if you were to look at the history of the clown, the jester, well, they have various roles in different cultures and different times, not only as the disturbing figure meant to bring comedic joy to the little ones. Many times they were also seen as subjects of pity and melancholy, particularly if they were simply deformed individuals labeled as clowns or freaks. And thus we have the story of an anthropologist studying clowns in modern society, and the little town of Moarte. In Moarte, during the winter season, they have a festival where clowns are somehow involved, yet everything about the festival seems very vague. When our protagonist investigates the appearance of his old professor in the town, he discovers that the freaks and the clowns are not always what they appear to be.
But don't worry about that main character, my children. After all, he is one of them. He has always been one of them.
Our next tale is Dream of a Mannequin, and I have to admit, my children, I don't entirely get it. The artwork comes to us from Ben Templesmith of 30 Days of Night fame and Silent Hill Dying Inside infamy, and I must admit he does a good job here. It helps that much of the story is centered around dreams, so the hazy colors and half-finished pencils contribute to a surreal atmosphere that does work for the story. What I do not get is, well, the point of this story. It is from the letters of a psychiatrist who has recently interviewed a woman who has been having nightmares relating to working at a clothing store with mannequins. And yes, there is the standard twist of, oh, she was a mannequin the whole time, Twilight Zone stuff. But that is not the end of the story. It seems to be more about the nature of dolls and the fears of the psychiatrist himself and his relationship to a fellow psychiatrist, and how his own dreams are encouraging him to give in and become a doll like the others. And yet, my children, I cannot say that I hate this story, for you see, the nightmares they have echoed my own when I was alive, of a dark, imposing figure standing behind me, of being unable to turn and look at it, of another dark figure watching in the shadows.
Why do I bring this up? I cannot say. Why do things happen as they do in dreams?
Third up is Dr. Locrian's Asylum. The madhouse, the sanitarium, the asylum. All are words that bring to mind the image of the insane, the mad, the broken. There is a general unease about such places because they contain what we could become, regular people who are no longer quite right. It is not glamorous nor fantastic. It is merely haunting. And for this little town, the local sanitarium, abandoned for decades, has been nothing but an eyesore, disturbing the otherwise perfect horizon line. And so they have finally come to demolish it and raise the graveyard beside it. And yet, its destruction does not bring them the peace they sought. The good Mr. Locrian tells a local bookshop owner who had led the charge against the asylum of what his grandfather had sought to do with the place, and how the destruction of that eyesore has let everything inside of it out.
And what point did he have in coming and telling the bookstore owner all this? Well, that's easy. He came to see if his books had arrived.
Our final story from the factory is Teatro Grottesco. Like the dream of a mannequin, I admit I do not quite understand what exactly the titular teatro is. I get that it is a story about a group that takes artists and strips away their desire to do artistic things, but I'm afraid I cannot exactly figure out how or why they do such things. One could read a simple demonic origin in the teatro in one of the segments, or possibly just how a cruel world will sap away the desire to create art. But that seems too easy an answer. But whatever that answer is, for the artist who serves as our narrator in this tale, he has a decision of his own to make.
The Nightmare Factory is as sophisticated as it is terrifying. Highly recommended, my children. Especially if you want stuff to haunt your own nightmares.